DeSantis. I'm the director for the St. Raymond Donatus Foundation for Freedom, Family, and Faith. I want to tell you what's been going on with us since we've been in existence in 2015. The Mercedarian Friars came together and decided that they wanted to start a foundation to make outreach to families in crisis. And that's exactly what they did when the St. Raymond Donatus Foundation came into existence as a nonprofit 501c3 headquartered in Philadelphia. Since that time, I became the director in the beginning of 2018, and we basically have four facets to what we do. We offer prayer, priestly consultations, podcasts and videos, and also programs and events. Now, if you've never been to our website, just to invite you to go to nonatus.org and check out all the great things that we've been doing. Because since that time, since we've been in existence, we've now helped hundreds of families who are going through really challenging times. And as you all know, we went through a really challenging time in 2020. So I'd just like to invite you to go and check out the great things that we're doing. And there's more to come. If you or your church community would like us to come and do some type of an event where we can talk about what we offer in terms of that pastoral accompaniment and making outreach to families in crisis, please do reach out to us. And I'm just so grateful to be able to serve people like you and your families. So again, learn about us at nonatus.org. Thank you.
Fiat Ministry Network and Patchwork Heart Ministry present Journeys in Faith. Now, here's Anne DeSantis.
Good evening and welcome to Journeys in Faith here on Fiat Ministry Network. My name is Anne DeSantis, and this is our Lenten series with the Mercedarian Friars. And for many of you who watch this show every week, you know that I work for a foundation. I'm the executive director for the St. Raymond Donatus Foundation, which was founded by the Mercedarian Religious Order. And with me, I have Father Joseph Eddy, and he's coming to us from Columbus, Ohio. Welcome, Father. Thank you for joining us on Journeys in Faith.
Thank you, Anne. It's a pleasure to be here, and happy Lent, everybody. I hope everyone's having a good beginning to their Lenten season. This is a very special season, even though obviously we're focused on, growing closer to God and avoiding sin and becoming better persons. This is always a season that really I see that inspires people. People are really there's an excitement, even strangely enough, in entering into Lent, that people get excited. They're excited to do something to better themselves spiritually. So I hope that everyone's having a good Lent so far.
Thank you, Father. And that's so true. I think as Catholics and as people of faith, we think about that Lenten season. It is a season of sacrifice, but it is also a season of growth, isn't it? So Yep. That's a beautiful thing. And I just want to invite all of you who are watching, as I said, I work for the St. Raymond Donatus Foundation. It's really important part of what I do and just being a part of the Mercedarian family, right? And I'm also a third order member with the Mercedarians and my husband too. And we just love this religious order. And I just want to invite you to go to orderofmercy.org and learn more. Just learn more about vocations, learn more about where they're located and their saints. And there's just such a beautiful history there. So maybe we can just start out with that, Father. Tell us about the order as much as you want to share.
Yeah. Well, there's just so much that I could share with you. 800 years of history about our beautiful community, but I'll just share with you the basic charism. And the charism is that spirit that God gives to one particular religious order, but really he gives it to that order for the whole church. So we know that there's so many beautiful charisms and spiritualities out there in our church. And for those maybe people who are new to the Catholic Church, or maybe sort of new in their desire to grow in their faith, and they're kind of being reawakened to this beauty of the different spiritualities that exist in the church. And for us, it's that Mercedarian spirituality that came to us 800 years ago when our founder, St. Peter Nolasco, as just a regular merchant, he was going and selling his goods. And at that time, Spain was struggling in some ways. Half of Spain was controlled by the Muslims, and there was a tension there and a constant captivity and sometimes violence and so forth, which of course our minds go to the Ukraine today and all that they're going through. But that was sort of something that was going on throughout Spain for really, practically speaking, 700 years. But at this time, 1218, Nolasco was out there and he was desiring to, just to sell his goods. And then he saw the Christians who were enslaved. When he went to these Muslim areas, he saw Christians who were in captivity. They may have been taken in war-torn areas and taken captive. So you can imagine your own relatives, maybe cousins or even brothers and sisters, that all of a sudden they were taken captive and they just disappeared. You knew they were somewhere in Muslim lands. You didn't know if they were alive or what was going on with their life. And they were considered less than in those societies. And in one way or another, they were held in captivity. Some of them, they actually were in the type of slavery, and even to the point of not having hardly any freedom. Others had an aspect of freedom in their life, but they were, would have to walk on the other side of the street when a Muslim or something walked by, because they were Christian. And they were offered many pleasantries and many things if they were to convert to the faith. And so what St. Peter Nolasco, our founder, saw then was that many of them were renouncing their faith because of this pressure, maybe for their family and stuff. And we could see how that would be a great temptation for them. They want their family, or they want themselves to have a normal life, or as normal as possible in this difficult situation. So we hear that thousands renounced their faith at that time, for one reason or another. So Nolasco wanted to help them. So he just began to just try to buy them back. So there was actually a possibility of an exchange, and you could collect money. And so he used his own resources as a nobleman, and he would buy them back. And over time, what happened was others began to follow him, other young men, and began to try to help and see this as a great work. So it wasn't something that he desired to do on his own. And he said, God wants me to do this. I'm going to do this. We found this religious community. It was something that he just saw a need in society, and he tried to help. So we can all relate to that. And so what happened over time is that others began to follow, and he had an apparition or an appearance of the Blessed Mother. And that was sometime around August the 1st, the 2nd of 1218. And so Mary appeared to him as he was praying there. What should I do? Should I continue this work? And he was praying at Montserrat, which is a great mountain, huge mountain, where many apparitions and appearances of Our Lady and ways in which God has spoken to the people of Spain has happened there at Montserrat, including St. Ignatius of Loyola and others. But there was St. Peter Nolasco had that appearance, that apparition of the Blessed Virgin Mary. And she said to him that my son desires not only that you continue this work, but that you found a religious community. And so right away, within 10 days, he founded that community. He went to the bishop, he went to the king, which he had to have the sponsorship of the king. And after getting that sponsorship of the king and the bishop, he founded the religious community. And one thing that's very much a part of our community is our shield. People will look at our shield and they'll see that we have bars. We have the bars underneath, which are a sign of the Kingdom of Aragon, or Catalan right now. If you go over to Barcelona, you would see those bars all over the place, and some of their soccer teams and so forth in Barcelona have those bars, and those are a sign of the kingdom. And then the cross on our shield is a sign of the Cathedral of Barcelona, and the crown being our Blessed Mother, and also our connection to the crown there. And so this became a passport. So as St. Peter and his brothers, at first it was just brothers, no priests. And they would go into Muslim territories, and if people saw that they had this shield, then they recognized that that was the kingdom of Aragon, and that was a protection for them. And so over time, we developed what we call the fourth vow, which poverty, chastity, obedience we take, but also a fourth vow to be willing to offer our lives for those most in danger of losing their faith. And many of our early Mercedarians, and even later on in history, would offer their lives for the Christian captives in exchange. And sometimes the money wouldn't get back in time. And so unfortunately, they would suffer that martyrdom, which Jesus tells us is no greater love is there than this, than to lay down your life for your friends. So we see in this beautiful, this is the way the charism develops, the spirituality. It's an aspect of Jesus' life that he gives to us. And for Mercedarians, it is redemption. That's the aspect of Jesus' life, or that spirituality which the church has been given through the Mercedarian order. And there's many sisters congregations that are attached to us, as well as our friars, and also there's discalced Mercedarians. That means they don't wear shoes, they wear sandals. So there's a small group of friars that are called the discalced Mercedarians. And so there is that history of our third order, many people who lay people who helped us from the very beginning to do our great work. So it really is a wonderful charism. Right now, it's understood, and over time, it's developed and grown and matured. Of course, physical captivity always exists, and we have to be aware of that. But also, we have to be aware also of many different kinds of political, psychological, etc., captivity that exists in our world, addictions, which keep people from living their faith. So in different countries, every region where we are, we have to determine what is it that we're going to do to try to help Christian captives in our land. And that's not going to be the same. It's going to continually change as times change. As we know in our country today, family life is going through some struggles. And that's because of many different reasons, but divorce and different struggles that modern world kind of gives us in our world today. And to deal with that, it's very difficult for families. And because of that, we founded the St. Raymond Nonatus Foundation to work and to help families in many different ways. But in one way is certainly to help those who are struggling with separation and divorce. And how can we, because that's a means in which people can really, lose their faith, because a family is really the first way in which we learn about God and the way in which we learn about love. And so if we have struggles in family life, it sort of creates a lot of tension and struggles for our faith. So, Anna, I just want to give you a little chance to respond to any of these things. I don't want to continue to go on, but that's some of our charism.
Yeah, thank you so much. You did a great job of telling people about the order, a little bit about St. Peter Nolasco and about the foundation. It's just beautiful. And I just want to put those websites out there again, is the orderofmercy.org. And to learn about the foundation, which, as I said, I'm the executive director, it would be nonatus.org, which is on our commercial too. So you're going to see it again. But we have so much more to talk about, Father. When we come back, we'll talk about your own vocation. And now Father has been relocated out to Columbus, Ohio. And for his friends who are watching this show right now, he'll tell you a little bit about what's going on there and the work that he and Father Michael Donovan are doing. So we're just going to take a short break, and we will be back in just a few minutes.
Today, many students go to college with numerous questions about their faith, yearning to know if the seed planted in them as a child is both true and practical. Using the miracle on the road to Emmaus as a model, young adult ministers conversed weekly for 3 months with college students about the most pressing questions they had about the Catholic faith. As they journeyed together virtually, something amazing happened. Doubts disappeared, fears faded, and Jesus revealed that He is still alive. Hearts Burning Within Us, the latest book from Patchwork Heart Ministry, is a result of that grace-infused conversation. It is the perfect back-to-school gift for recent high school graduates and current college students. Get your copy for them today at patchworkheart.org or by calling 424-704-3278. That's 424-704-3278.
Welcome back to Journeys in Faith. Thank you so much for joining us here on this Friday evening with Father Joseph Eddy, Mercedarian Friar, located out in Columbus, Ohio. And of course, he used to be out here where I'm located in the Philadelphia area, and that's how I got to know him when he was here for quite a while. So again, Father, thank you so much for joining us on Journeys in Faith here.
Thank you, Anne, and thank you, and prayers to everyone out there in the world, in our country, and all those especially devoted to our Mercedarian family.
That's right. Now, I would love for people to hear if you could tell us a little bit about your vocation story and about how you became a Mercedarian friar.
Okay. Well, it's a beautiful story, as all of us have those stories about, whether it be marriage or whatever, how God has led us to where we're supposed to be and how we're supposed to serve Him and continue to grow in holiness. I grew up in Northeast Pennsylvania in a small town. I usually tell people I grew up in Scranton, Pennsylvania, but that's actually the closest city. So most people wouldn't know where the small town is called Montrose. It's a very old town, part of the Underground Railroad. And so it was an old town, and growing up there was sort of typical Norman Rockwell, I guess you would say, American town. And in the 1980s, growing up there it was nice. You could go out and play and so forth, and it was safe little town to grow up in. And no Catholic schools, or it was a Catholic church, of course, but no Catholic schools, a small town. So we went to the public schools, and we were very active in the church, and oftentimes went, of course, to church on Sundays, but sometimes even during the week. When I became an altar server, I didn't want to become an altar server, but one of my friends became an altar server, and he encouraged me. He said, well, I don't want to do this alone, so you have to do it. And my mom was smart enough to say to my sisters and I, well, you have to do something in the church. Either you're going to sing in choir or you're going to be a server, Joe. So for me, I chose that. And that was really an important moment in my life, to be close to the Eucharist and the Mass. And I think that really was a way in which God touched me, because then within that year or so, I started to think about becoming a priest. And that thought came into my mind that was something I would like to do. I had a connection to the local parish there. My great aunt was one of the ladies who caretakers. They would have an older lady who in that small town who would take care of the priest and the parish and so forth. And there was a separate section of the rectory where they would live. And so because my great aunt was there, I oftentimes got this sort of special connection. We'd go and visit her, and she'd make us cookies and so forth. And sometimes I'd have breakfast with the priest after I served Mass, even during the week. So for the altar servers, young altar servers, we had to serve Mass even during the week, and then I'd head off to school. But I guess at that time, it was that thought of, well, this is something I would really like to do. I didn't know if I could do it, and so I mentioned it to my friends, and kind of laughed at me. It's kind of a normal, kid thing, it just sort of, they laughed. That was something I didn't think why would you want to do that? So I kind of put it in the back of my mind for many years. And then in 11th grade, someone from my parish, a well-respected gentleman, said to me, after I was serving, God told me while you were up there serving that you were to become a priest. And that really, at that moment, was a moment of grace, I guess you would say. God's grace or God's life was given to me, and that vocation was sort of reignited. I mean, it was always there, but sometimes we can ignore those things. So from then on, I think my mind was sort of on that. Even though I would go on then to college, undergraduate, special education, and I would get that degree, but I would be preparing myself to enter wherever it was that God wanted me. And I found out about the Mercedarian community. In those days, the internet was still dial-up, so in the 90s. So it wasn't, you didn't go to the internet for a lot of these things, still the books, and they had this guide for religious ministry, which had postcards in it. You send out the postcard and they send you some information about that community. So there were two communities that I decided, having had a devotion to the Rosary and the Blessed Mother, growing up, my family praying oftentimes together, the Rosary, I thought to myself, I want to go to a community that's devoted to Mary. And so that was the first thought. And then when I found out about the charism of the order, mercy and helping those in danger of losing their faith, and also I found out that my birthday was actually on the foundation day of the order, August 10th. So that was an extra sign that God was leading me in this way. And I think for those who may be discerning, I would just say, there's not going to be usually fireworks. I mean, it's going to be sort of a desire, a yearning, and you feel a comfort. And that's really the important thing. And so I had good direction, good people helping me along the way. And so I was able to get through those ups and downs that come. And as I entered and I went through formation, there were a lot of those who helped me to realize that this is a beautiful life and one that can give you great joy, but also it's going to have its ups and downs too. And so that's my story. And I'm so happy that I was ordained, and I would not want to do anything else with my life. I'm thankful that, I'm part of a community that prays together and that prays the Rosary, and we're very devoted to supporting each other in our prayer. And that's really the foundation of our religious life.
Thank you so much for sharing. And I love hearing your story. And I think you've shared it with me once before, but every time you hear a vocation story, you hear a little more detail, right? And so the reminder that your birthday was on the feast day, I think that, as you said, there might not be fireworks that go off or great big signs all over the place
Right.
that, hey, this is what I should do. But, God does sometimes give you small things, like the gentleman that said to you that he felt God spoke to him, right? That you were to be a priest. And I know sometimes I've heard this before, that in religious life and in promoting priestly vocations and vocations in general, when we can say those words as, lay people, when we say those words to someone that we think would make a good priest, it does make a big difference, I believe.
Oh, yeah.
It does. And so I think that's really beautiful. Now, you've been in Columbus, Ohio, just for several months now, and this is a new place because the Mercedarian Friars in the United States, they're in Philadelphia, they're headquartered there, they're in Western New York, they're in Cleveland, Ohio, and they're also in the St. Petersburg, Florida area, and now they have a new presence in Columbus. So can you please tell us about that?
Well, it's a beautiful story of how we got here. But also in some ways sad, and I'll share that all with you, is that we've had, during this time of the pandemic, we've lost 3 of our friars, and one of them was older. He died we had 2 guys we lost from the coronavirus. One was an older priest, Father Arcangelo Manzi, and he died from the virus a number of years ago. And then also, recently, we lost 2 of our priests who were in their 60s, so still having a lot of ministry, we thought, left in them, and they were great leaders for our community. One was Father Michael Rock, who was the vicar provincial, and then also Father Richard Rash. And sort of, sometimes, just like within family life, we have these tragedies. So we, as a religious family, we have these tragedies that we sort of have to deal with. And also, God speaks to us through these things, and we talk to help families and parishioners all the time to deal with these, and we have to deal with them ourselves too. And sort of that was within that some of these tragedies and suffering that we went through as a community, that it was determined that we needed to make some changes and also make it move to a new apostolate, a new work, one in which it actually. Father Michael Rock and a lot we're thinking about maybe going to a new place, to Columbus, and we needed a new seminary. And so these things were in dialogue and thought, but sometimes you need a little push, and God gives you a push. Sometimes it's through circumstances that are very joyful, but sometimes it's through circumstances that are part of our life, but very difficult, of death and so forth. So this was kind of our push that we had to make some changes, and so we did. We're going to be leaving our seminary that we've been using for many years in Philadelphia, because as they sell their property. But so we desired to find another seminary to use, and the Josephinum is here in Columbus. So that's a pontifical university. You can get pontifical degrees. That means church degrees, I guess, that would be approved by the Holy See, and so very good studies. And also there was this availability of this wonderful parish down here, Holy Family, which was growing and outside the city. And Columbus is the #1 fastest growing city in Ohio, and one of the cities in the United States that is growing. So there's a new chip factory, Microsoft chip factory, that is going to be open, or Intel rather, chip factory opening here. So there's jobs, and the people are coming here. So there's a need to, as the Catholics move in, to have a presence and to be here. And also you have Ohio State University. So there's many different things going on here in this beautiful city, which they tell me is Midwest. So this is actually our first apostolate in the Midwest, even though it's not too far from Cleveland. They consider themselves to be a different cultural than the Northeast, which Philadelphia and Cleveland will be more consider themselves the Northeast type culture. So we end up here, and here we are, and this beautiful parish has wonderful liturgies, known for wonderful liturgies, very traditional in many ways. A lot of young people come here from the university for the beautiful liturgies, as well as another wonderful apostolate that we have here, which is the soup kitchen. There's some, not far from here, there's a place where the homeless live, a homeless camp, I guess you would call it. And it's just across the tracks. So I've not got yet to visit there, but in these 2 months that we've been here, we've got to help out a little bit and get to see how we every single day give meals, hot meal to these homeless people, and give them hopefully some hope as well, and let them know that Christ is taking care of them through his church. So that's some of the great work that's going on here. And I think that we can also integrate some of the work that we're doing with family life and trying to help families here as well. So that's a little bit about Columbus.
Yeah, I love to hear it. In fact, as executive director for the foundation, I would love to collaborate. I know we can talk about that off camera, right?
Sure.
But
Yeah,
I mean, some kind of family collaborative work
having
that
you
we can do.
come by, and there's a lot to do here. A lot of young families, and as is a place everywhere. People who need to know that Jesus loves them.
That's right. Now, you came from being a pastor in Cleveland, and now here you are in Columbus. Do you see a big difference just in your daily life as a priest? I mean, for your friends who are watching?
Yeah. For anyone watching from Cleveland, I miss you. I was a pastor there for the first time. I was assigned a pastor at our inner city parish of Our Lady Mount Carmel with the school as well, and our sisters are there, and wonderful place to be. And I learned so much there. I did not expect. Again, this is God's working in our life and in yours. Sometimes He does things that we do not expect. There was kind of a plan that when we come there to Columbus, who's going to go, and everything kind of got mixed up, when some of our friars passed away. But God ultimately is the one who makes the decisions of where we're going to go and what. So obviously here, I'm going to be involved in formation. So I was asked to work in formation of some of our young guys. So I'm excited about that. It's just getting started here as we get to know the parish and get set up. But hopefully in the future, we're going to have young men here, and I'll be working with them in different capacities, teaching them a little bit about that charism that we talked about.
Yeah, it's beautiful. And again, that charism, for people who are new to learning about the order, it's that fourth vow, which is the willingness to give their lives for those in danger of losing their faith. So please do keep the Mercedarian Religious Order in your prayers, and all the friars, because every week for the next several weeks, we're going to be hosting different friars here on Journeys in Faith. So be sure to tune in next week, because next week we'll have another one of our friars. And it's just an honor for me, as I said, being a part of the Mercedarian family. Now, here we are in the Lenten season, Father. I wondered if you could give maybe 1 or 2 tips for those watching to continue to grow in their faith during this Lenten season.
All right, sure. Yeah, Lent is a season of grace. So it's a season when God gives us special graces, you could say, to respond to his call. And each one of us, there's maybe different areas in our life that, the Lord still kind of wants to work on. And I would just encourage people, like with prayer, fasting, and almsgiving, to look at those 3 areas, because really that's what our tradition gives us in our faith. Those 3 things, and they're focused on God, but then also other people. So we can't forget any of those aspects of our spiritual life, that everything, it's not just us and God, but it's us and God and everyone else. So choose something maybe from one of those 3 areas, or both, all 3, I would say. If you could do something, even if it's just something small, but like, say, for example, I would like to pay more attention to people when they're talking to me, or listen better, be a better listener. I know that's hard to do, but if you check your progress every day during Lent, it's kind of something that what you can do is you start to begin to kind of be more aware of it. And I think even if you don't make a whole lot of progress at the end of the 40 days, at least you realize that, okay, this is something I'm going to continue to work on for the rest of the year. So look at it, look at yourself. We all have our weaknesses and stuff and things we want to be better at. But I would say practical things, especially things that are going to help your relationship with God and other people, listening to each other, maybe putting away the phone a little bit. And then, of course, there is fasting. There's a great value in fasting, but there's different types of fasting that we can do. Fasting from food can be helpful. Fasting from media can be helpful too, but not from Anne's show. Fast from that.
Thank you.
That's good. That's a good spiritual moment to grow. So yeah, so there's many different things, but I think there's keep it practical. Also, we have to hit that sweet spot of like not too easy, not too hard. And that's really important, because if we go to something like, we have these great designs, I want to pray for an hour. Well, then we get into our daily life, or maybe involved with our family and stuff, and that's just too hard. And then, or we do something too easy, and then we're, not growing as much as we could.
That's perfect. Very good advice. And I love having you on this show. In fact, we're going to have to do a part 2 at some point.
All right.
Because unfortunately we're almost out of time. Now, is there a specific website? I gave everybody the orderofmercy.org, but do you have another one that they may stay in touch with you? Or anything, or would it be best to go to
Mercy.org would be fine, yeah. And
okay.
Yeah, if anyone wants to talk or anything, you could always contact Anne and we'll get in touch.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Father Joseph, for being a guest here. And I wish you a beautiful rest of this Lenten season. And to all of our friends here, our audience, we will see you all next week here on Journeys in Faith. God bless.
Journeys of Faith is a production of Fiat Ministry Network and Patchwork Heart Ministry. For more information about Journeys of Faith, email info@fiatministrynetwork.tv. And be sure to friend, follow, and like us on social media. Just search Journeys in Faith with Anne DeSantis.